do you know, like if you're dating somebody, how would you detect their attachment style? And
Conflict.
are opposite attachment styles attracted to each other? Can avoidance or anxious or whatever attachment styles, can they be repaired?
Oh my
Can
goodness,
they
yes.
be healed? Hey everybody, welcome to the Daniele Hage Podcast. And as you know, I talk about everything that has to do with relationships. And I met Adam Lane Smith. I think he may have, I can't remember now if I found you first or you found me, but I've already been on one of his podcasts and I've been following him and he is so interesting. And I have some questions that I think you're going to be great at answering. So welcome to my podcast. And I always like to start off, well, first of all, let me just tell you that Adam is a psychotherapist and an attachment specialist. So I always like to start with new people that I barely know. I like to do some history sharing. So start off telling us, first of all, how did you get interested in psychology? How did you grow up? What kind of family did you grow up? And I know it's a loaded question. Let's just start there.
Sure. So I grew up in a extended family that had a long history of adoption. There were foster kids in it. There was a lot of struggle to try to find meaning and define what our original purpose was supposed to be for being a family. I also grew up in a wider city out in California where it was ground zero for broken families, for a lot of addictions, for very unhealthy behavior. So I grew up in an area where a lot of the kids around me were struggling. For some reason, whatever it is about me, I developed a reputation for being the kid all the other kids could go to and talk about their challenges and get some solutions from. So from about the age of 12 on, I was shouldering the burden emotionally for a lot of my friends and a lot of their friends. And it just was work that came naturally to me. I wanted other people to not suffer. And I also had some attachment challenges myself. I was very insecure. I didn't really know what my place was in this world, and I didn't really know how relationships were supposed to function. So somebody about the time I was 19, 20 pointed out that I could go to school and learn how to actually help other people and then get paid for it. And around the same time, I stumbled across this idea that I could not keep living the way that I was living. I could not keep letting my overthinking get the best of me and day out spend time worrying about what people thought of me. I couldn't hold back on what I needed in relationships anymore. I had to apply proper boundaries with people that were transgressing boundaries. I need to be living my life more in line with my principles and my long-term goals and vision than I was at the time, because mostly I was focused on trying to reduce friction and make people happy. So I started fixing that in my life because I just could not handle that anymore. It was a very hard process doing it alone. Then I went to school, did therapy, did all the trainings to become healthier myself and along the way. And then I got my master's degree, and then I jumped out of the field. And instead of working with young people, I started working with death penalty inmates who had committed multiple murders and were up for trials and pleading not guilty in court, and then would come and confess multiple murders to me, plus additional murders that hadn't been solved yet. So I started working with some of the most extreme populations and helping them with family problems.
Hold on. What made you, did you want to work with those kind of people? Did you find that curious, interesting? How did you go that direction?
My mentor, I know it's quite a jump. My mentor at the time, I actually wanted to work with at-risk families, but my mentor at the time said, there's an interesting opening for you in a correctional area. I really think you're one of the few people that could actually speak to these populations who have the most extreme trauma stories, the most extreme problems that they've dealt with, the most extreme self-esteem issues because they've actually killed people or hurt people. And I think that you could actually resolve some of these people's issues and then help them see the light. So she plugged me in, and it was some of the most rewarding work I think I had ever done in my life, was helping career criminals or hard cases actually come through their trauma and find a better life on the other side. It was phenomenal, rewarding work. I love to this day. It's some of my favorite work I've ever done.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So how old were you when you got married?
I married at 22.
Married at 22. That's pretty young. And how did you meet your wife?
She was a friend of, so both of our best friends were dating each other. And then they happened to link us up and said, you guys are very much the same values, same religious faith, same like everything. We should really connect the two of you. And we said, oh, okay. So they introduced us to each other, and it was just instant. It was like sparks. We actually got engaged at 2 weeks of meeting each other. I said,
Wait,
no one
what?
has taken you. Oh yeah. I said, no. I said, you're wonderful. Nobody else is marrying you. I'm going to be the one that marries you. And she said,
Wow.
okay. So we got engaged at 2 weeks. We got married at 11 months. We've been married for about we've been married for, I'm 39, 16, 17 years now. It's been a while. We got 5 kids together. It has worked out quite well. So.
And did you know when you got married that you both wanted a lot of kids?
Yes. I wanted, 3, 4, somewhere in that area. She wanted 10. So we're trying to figure that out right now a little bit. We're at 5. We're at 5. I don't know. I guess we'll find that out.
How old's your youngest?
Just 7 months. 7 months.
Oh my gosh. And how old's the oldest?
8.
Wow. 5 kids under 8.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have your hands full. My goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And now you are in Wisconsin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now?
I am.
And how did you get from California to Wisconsin?
She grew up in Wisconsin, and the magical thing that happens for women is they like to, when they're young, they like to kind of travel and go to cities and grow and go to college. But when they decide to settle down and build their nest and have their babies, they usually go home to where mom is. So that was ultimately what the game was it was time to have kids. We're not doing it in California. Let's go back where mom is, and we'll move to Wisconsin. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. And now does your wife work?
Not anymore. She did. She graduated valedictorian from her high school. She was offered a full ride scholarship to Harvard Business because she was so intelligent. She did run her own business for some years as well. She helped put me through schooling. So I worked full time, also went to school full time, and then went to a second university part time to get through my schooling. She worked and she got a bachelor's degree rather, and then she got her. She ran her business and helped get us through all of that. And then the moment I was done with schooling, I went and got my job. I retired her so that she could become a stay-at-home mom at that point. And she's not had to work ever since, except for as a stay-at-home mom extensively.
That's awesome. Okay. So being married to a psychologist, what would she say? Maybe I should have her on too. What would she say is your guys' biggest point of contention, if there is one?
I have to be very mindful of this because I was a marriage and family therapist for many years, and marriage and family therapists have the highest divorce rates of all psychotherapists.
Really?
Yes, because they walk in and they assume they know the best. They assume that their spouse should listen to them. They try to be their spouse's therapist. I am the expert here. Here's what you need to do. And they dictate very often. So I'm very mindful of that. So if I had to ask her what our biggest point of contention would be, I would probably, that is a good question. What is her biggest complaint? What does she complain about? She doesn't complain much at all. Probably nice. the number one challenge for us is just finding a not necessarily a work-life balance, but work kids romance balance. That's probably the biggest challenge for us, as it probably is for most couples these days.
I agree. Yep.
So we have solved that recently, even by the use of Google Calendar, where we schedule dates on repeating days. So we don't even have to pick anymore. We pick scheduled days. We pick scheduled evenings. Good. So I work a good 14, 15 hours a day, at least 6 days a week. So I work about 85 hours a week. And then every time at nighttime hits, 9 o'clock hits, my schedule's blocked off. My assistant knows this gray zone means you are dead to me. Do not even try to contact me. My phone goes away and I am with my wife. We sit, we hold hands, we watch an old movie, and we talk about our day and we relax and we just share that intimate, that bonding, that talking time. And we make sure that we reconnect as husband and wife for at least 4 or 5 times a week. We try to do that for at least 45 really minutes. So, it's mandatory, right?
Yeah, it's a discipline. Yes.
Yeah, it is. It is. Do you have something? Do you have anything similar in your life for somebody that's really important to you? Do you schedule it out?
It's easy for my husband and I now. We're empty nested.
So, I hear you.
Like our kids are grown and gone, so we have lots of time. Lots of time. In fact, we have to be careful that we don't just take all that time for granted and not do anything with it.
Fair. You have to schedule time away from each other now, pretty much.
Sometimes we do, but we like we get along really good. Like during the pandemic when we couldn't go anywhere, he's traveled our whole marriage, pretty much our whole marriage. So we were together 24/7 and we had so much fun. And we were cracking up because, well, it wasn't a crack up. It was kind of sad because we were hearing how so many couples hated each other and now they have to be in the house together. And we're like, we are so lucky. We really are blessed that we actually enjoy each other's company. I said, and this is the most time we've ever spent together our whole married life because you've always traveled. But we are very compatible. Like we thought it was a fun challenge. We can't go anywhere. We have to sit home. Let's watch old movies. I'll cook every day. And we rode bikes every day and took walks. I mean, it was not a problem for us at all. So we are
That's
blessed
wonderful.
in that way. But okay, so let me ask you this. So how did you become an attachment specialist? And then I'm going to have you explain what attachment styles are, because I never knew anything about attachment styles when I was raising my kids. Now, because it's out there so much, I've read a couple books, but I have some questions about that. But how did you get interested where that's mostly what you talk about?
Yeah. So when I went through schooling, I had fixed my own attachment. I didn't know what it was called. And I ran across it in a book somewhere. And I said, this is interesting. I want to learn more about this. And my teachers in graduate school said, you know, this is for babies. You don't have to worry about this. This is not something we have to learn. And the whole class said, okay. And we moved on. But it didn't quite hit right for me. I said, no, there's something here. This is something. And I got out into the field and I ended up reading, after I got licensed, went through the whole, it's a 9-year process. I got out in the field and I read No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover. And in there, I encountered again this idea of insecurity and bonding and problems. And then I looked again at attachment theory in an old dusty book somewhere. And I said, this is it. Like this is the core of all of our problems, our mental health problems, our relationships, our fears, our epidemics that we have of substance use. I think this is it. And so I started studying and immersing in it. And very few people in the world were talking about attachment theory. And Bowlby died back in the 90s. He's the one who created attachment theory. And not much had been done. Not much had been done since the 90s. Just it was off, in fringes. So I said, this is something I want to talk about this. So I started talking about it online on my Twitter profile. I ended up getting it picked up by podcasters. Chris Williamson had me on 4 times. Michaela Peterson had me on briefly. And then I ended up linking up with a very, very good team called Veritas Creative. And they said, we believe in attachment. You've convinced us. Now we don't want to spread your message everywhere in the world. And I said, great. So we started talking on different media platforms. And of all places, this is going to be weird, of all places, TikTok was the number one place that wanted to learn about attachment theory. No one was talking about it. And I put my videos on there and I got millions and millions and millions of views on my earliest videos. And it blew up my account and people freaked out. And I talked about different bonding hormones, the science of it, not just attachment styles, but your different bonding, oxytocin, vasopressin, your sympathetic nervous system. I started talking about the science behind it. People freaked out. TikTok became the platform. And that was years and years and years ago. So I'm happy that you said that attachment theory is a lot of places now. I noticed that when I started talking about it, no one wanted to talk about attachment theory. And all of a sudden, like every person online has transitioned to now talking about attachment theory all of a sudden.
Everybody is talking about,
and that's funny, isn't it? I'm happy because that was one of my first goals was to get everyone talking about attachment theory. And now we have. Now, my biggest challenge is getting people the correct information. Because what a lot of people are doing, and this is so frustrating to me, what a lot of people are doing is they pick up attachment and they say, okay, what's my style? And they learn from like their trendy, like fashionista Instagram person. They're like, she's talking about attachment now and she parrots back what she's heard. And she says, when you're anxiously attached, like avoidant people do this, it's horrible. They owe this to you because you're anxious. And it becomes your zodiac sign. Like, what style are you? That's all you'll ever be. People owe it to you to be sensitive. No. You have to change your attachment style. It's a survival adaptation to soothe your sympathetic nervous system based on environmental threat factors that you are perceiving. Okay. So fixing your attachment style, that's my next mission, is to not get I got everybody talking about attachment. Now I need to get everybody talking about fixing their attachment. That's the next wave of what I'm trying to foster in the world right now. So we'll see a couple years from now if everybody's talking about fixing their attachment. I hope that's the case.
Well, my daughter, my youngest, is a first-time mommy. And she read something about attachment styles that a friend of a friend said, hey, maybe you should talk to this therapist, because she was dating a guy who turns out to be an avoidant. And my daughter realized that she was an anxious. And now what I've learned on that, I can see why the issues that they had. And then she, at the same time, around the same time, started dating another guy who was a secure attachment. Well, she ended up marrying the secure attachment guy. Okay. And so they just had their first baby. So she's really big on making sure this baby attaches to her properly. So when she found out you were going to be on my podcast, she goes, "Oh my gosh, Mom, you got to ask him. You have to ask him." She goes, like, am I doing it right? But I mean, she will not put that child down. And she has done the research and has read everything. And she's like, she co-sleeps. That child is in her arms. I can barely hold her. And we've had lots of conversations, and I get where she's coming from. And she says that it's my fault that she's an anxious attachment. And that's what her therapist told her. And I said, how old is this therapist? Because, there's a lot of young 30-year-olds out there now giving advice. And it caused some friction between the two of us, because I felt like she was blaming me, like I was not a good mom. And I took so much pride. I was a stay-at-home mom, even homeschooled a while. And I took so much pride in my parenting. And I was just like defensive when she was saying, this is your fault that I'm this way. And I'm like, oh my God, I failed you as a parent. But now I've done some more research and realized that for however she attached or didn't to me, I know that I did the best I could. And however things I said or didn't say landed on her the way they did, not necessarily trying to hurt my child or anything. So I'm a little bit free from that now. But I remember when my kids were little, reading books, because I wanted to read everything to make sure I did it right. And I remember when books started coming out about all the moms around me, the older moms, because I was a young mom, saying you have to let them cry themselves to sleep. And no, you put them in their crib and you don't go back in and this and that. And that was so hard for me. And then I read a book about, I don't remember what it was called, but it was like, no, you don't let them cry sleep. They're crying because they need you. And don't do that. And I was so confused. Like, do I let them cry? Do I, rock them to sleep? I was so confused. And so I want to know from you, like new moms with babies, what's the proper way to attach correctly?
I hear you. And there's so much debate on this. Like, let them cry it out. No, if you ever let them cry it out before the age of 30, you're a monster. I've heard that time and again. I got 5 kids. I'm the attachment specialist. Here's what we have done. For the first 6 months, absolutely not. For the first 6 months, we don't let our kids cry it out at all. We're very attentive to their needs. Anyone who's been around kids multiple times, especially raised multiple kids, at about 6 months, they start kind of learning how to work your nerve, and they start, you know what I mean? They're just a little bit, they learn manipulation tactics, just a little bit. They learn how to kind of push on you and get what they want just a bit. So when we start kind of seeing that pattern they're more pushing on us, at about 6 or 7 months, we start kind of not let them cry it out for, the all night, hours, but we give them a little, let them go a little bit longer, then stand with them, soothe them, care for them. Don't rip them out of the crib, but get them used to understanding that the crib is not a terrifying place. We really start soothing them in, and very quickly they're very calm and relaxed into their crib and they're happy. But first 6 months, we don't screw around with that. And then you don't just cold turkey them either. You gently ease them in. You get them used to the crib for nap time during the day. Maybe you sleep in that room with them next to the crib for a couple of days, but you get them used to the crib. You have to really ease them in, but it's fairly quickly after that. You could do pretty well. And this is for the average child. There's going to be children that need more, children maybe that even need less. Be attentive to that. Just watch your kid. Understand what they kind of need. If your instincts are screaming, take care of them, then okay, you pick them up, you cuddle them, you nurture them. You let them know they're not being abandoned and that wolves are not going to eat them in the forest. But definitely also understand that your kid is testing you, and it's your job as their parent to help them face some difficulties, some uncertainties, and help them get through it. The way that you help your child learn to sleep in a crib is definitely the way that you are probably going to help them through most of their challenges in life. If you say, that's enough, I've had enough of you, I'm sick of you and your crap, I'm dumping you in here and I'm not going to see you again for 10 hours, that's you're probably going to have problems as they grow up. if you gently ease them into that, that's a much safer way. And co-sleeping, I mean, the alternative is co-sleeping is just as dangerous for a number of reasons as well. So having their own space safely to sleep is one of the best, safest practices for a kid. You do need to be doing that eventually, especially if you want to maintain your marriage. Co-sleeping for the first 4 years it's hard on dads, especially. That's where you start seeing marriages fall apart. So I don't know that there's a perfect answer here, but definitely, I'll hit it one more time. The first 6 months is crucial. Don't screw around with those first 6 months. Anyone who tells you to let them cry it out in the first 6 months, they're a lunatic. Don't let them cry it out for the first 6 months minimum. And after that, use good judgment.
And she just turned 6 months just now, and we'll see what happens. And she's adorable, and I think my daughter's doing a great job.
Oh yeah.
But okay, so quickly, because I know this could take a long time, but for people who don't even know what attachment styles are, can you summarize there's 4, right? 4 styles. Can you summarize what each one is?
Yep. When you're a child, you have caregivers and you're dependent on other people, and there's conflicts, there's challenges, you have needs, you have a poopy diaper, you're hungry, you're scared, you're cold, you're confused. And the way that you navigate your world and the way that people work with you and the way that you can get your needs met fairly consistently and reliably. And then as you grow up and you ask questions and you're nurtured and you're cared for, the more that you do this by a strong caregiver who provides shelter and safety for you, the more you develop what's called a secure attachment, which means you can connect to other people without your sympathetic nervous system spiking. Your sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, threat detection, trauma, fear. You can connect to other humans and detect low levels of threat or zero threat in your relationships. So relationships are not threatening. Conflict is not threatening. Asking for your needs is not threatening. Everything is tagged as very calm and neutral, so you simply connect to other people without the spike of an emotional nervous system problem, okay? Your sympathetic nervous system does not activate in relationships. When you have insecure attachment, you grow up in such a way that relationships do feel threatening. It feels like if you do the wrong thing, mom will abandon you. Or if you do the wrong thing, dad will scream at you, or you'll get hurt, or you'll get abandoned, or abused, or just neglected, or you grow up without fostering and nurturing from other people, so you don't develop oxytocin bonding, so you don't even know what bonding really is. You can foster an insecure attachment style where relationships do tag as threats, intimacy and closeness do tag as threats, and your sympathetic nervous system activates when you're around other people. You have to share a need, you have to be vulnerable, someone's upset, you have a conflict, you have just a challenge you have to navigate with somebody, threat. So you launch into your sympathetic nervous system. There's a number of ways you can do this. When you have insecure attachment style, it breaks into one of the 3 styles, okay? One is anxious attachment. This says that there's something wrong with me that people can see, and they don't like it, and they abandon me when they see it. I'm a burden, I am unwanted, and it's all my fault, and it's right here. So if I open up, people will see it. I'm going to put up a cardboard cutout that is very perfect and sweet and wonderful, and everyone will love it, and I will do acts of service for other people, and they'll be so grateful that they'll return that kindness to me and figure out what I need and do it. That's how I'm going to get my needs met. And it's people-pleasing from an inferiority complex. It's anxious attachment. Primarily women have this. When we have guys who have it, we call it nice guy syndrome. For women, it's anxious. We just call it anxious attachment style. Okay. The other place that you can go to is other people are not trustworthy. Something is wrong with them. When they get stressed out, they act badly, they turn on you, they take from you, they hurt you, or even they don't even have to be malicious. They're just confused. I cannot trust anybody else. You also have probably not really bonded through that oxytocin feeling. So you haven't really experienced your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode. So you don't have the flow of oxytocin. You have low serotonin. You have a lot of chemicals missing. So you're in constant sympathetic nervous system where the brain says, I'm abandoned, I'm alone, no one's going to help me. And if I ask for help, people will take advantage of me and hurt me because now I'm weak. So I will be strong. Lone wolf survival mode. This is called avoidant attachment style. Primarily men have this. Women can get it. When women have this, there's a number of names that people call women for this. I actually love avoidant women. They're wonderful people, but we have a number of names that we call them. It's interesting because women with anxious style, we just call them shy. Men with avoidant attachment, we call them lone wolf or like army of one kind of guy. It's almost like encouraged for each gender to have this. Then there's a blend of the two, anxious and avoidant. Usually if you have more extensive pain, abuse, severe traumas, multiple layers of it, it wasn't enough for you to develop one attachment issue. Now you have both, and you might swing back and forth based on who you're around to adapt and try to stay safe. You crave that closeness and intimacy, but the moment you get it, you feel either like you're not worthy, so you're going to screw it up, or you feel like other people are unsafe, so you have to pull away and escape. So you'll sabotage in both directions, and you'll sabotage yourself, and your relationships are very fast and unstable. So these are the 4 attachment styles. I'm expanding attachment theory. I'm updating it for the first time since the 60s. It's about time. It's been 67 years. So we need to update it. I'm actually branching out to 8 attachment styles to really differentiate better so that people can really find themselves in it, because the research on this is showing that about 65% of people in your daughter's generation, 65% of young adults actually have attachment issues now.
Huh. Well, do you ever, how do you know, like if you're dating somebody, how would you detect their attachment style? And
Conflict.
are opposite attachment styles attracted to each other?
So you find this in conflict. You find it in, number one, how fast they start bonding to each other. If you're throwing emotions at each other really fast without really doing compatibility testing, really good indicator of insecure attachment, because they work on feelings more than they work on actual substance, because substance is scary. You look at conflict, right? How can you navigate even small conflicts? Conflict even meaning, hey, I want a committed relationship. Do you? Even that's a conflict. Hey, I want to have kids someday. Do you? Saying what you want and potentially conflicting with the other person. If you see someone have a red flag, you say, hey, I've noticed this about you. Tell me more about that. No, that's a secure response. If you see a red flag with somebody else with attachment issues, you don't say anything. You just silently watch and hope it will be okay. They tend to jump into feelings and jump into bed pretty quick, which means then they are over reliant on keeping that. So they stop compatibility testing so that they can keep getting the good feelings. So then they wind up down the road with really broken hearts. Avoidantly attached people usually don't oxytocin bond at all because they're in their sympathetic nervous system chronically, which blocks the oxytocin receptors. So a lot of avoidant men get into relationships for the first 6 months. Novelty dopamine falls off a cliff at 6 or 7 months. He completely loses that warm, like butterfly feeling for the girl. She is now deeply invested in him because she's anxiously attached and she craves his approval. She's actually addicted to the oxytocin he's releasing in her and provoking. Now you've got a recipe for absolute destruction because he's detaching while she's falling more and more into addiction with him. Absolute nightmare for the two of them right there.
Yeah, I think that might have been what was happening with my daughter because
Very
they
often.
were friends for 15 years, just platonic friends. They had a group of people and they were just friends. And it wasn't until I think they both had broken relationships and then kind of, went toward each other as friends. And then it turned romantic. And once it turned romantic, it was a disaster. And she started saying he has narcissistic behavior. And I'm like, we've known this kid for 15 years. He's not a narcissist. Like, when did he become a narcissist? Like, he knew our family. We knew him. And I was shocked that it went romantic because I never saw that for them. But I think it was out of a rebound need. And, but what I had learned about narcissists is they make great friends until you get romantically involved and they want to control you and own you. And I said, unless that's what's going on, and now that's coming out of him. But the longer it went on, we realized it was a push-pull. He was like, come, don't come any further. Come, no.
And this is why I have to update the field of attachment theory, because with avoidant people, and I'm really focused right now on helping avoidant people because they're very demonized across the spectrum. Everybody online wants to talk about attachment, and they all want to kick avoidant people with steel toes. Avoidance attachment style goes on a long spectrum. Okay. I start with what I call ethical avoidant. Ethical avoidant people are over here. They just don't want to get hurt, but they won't lie to you. They don't gaslight you. They don't stonewall you. They don't hurt you because they don't have malicious intentions, and they don't believe other people are malicious either. They think other people are emotionally dysregulated. They look at people as kind of a risk and kind of like big blundering children, and they try to just stay safe. So they tend to pull away from relationships and be nervous, but honest, okay? Ethically avoidant. As you go down that spectrum, as they get more and more hurt in childhood and they start to believe other people are malicious, you start to see more and more hurtful behaviors on their part, more manipulative behaviors.
Mm.
I call the other end of the spectrum manipulative avoidant, okay? Ethical avoidant to manipulative avoidant. The more manipulative you become, the more maliciousness you attribute to other people, the more you start to justify using manipulation tactics back on them to try to shut them down. Off the end of that spectrum is personality disorders, what we would call narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder. That's off the end of the spectrum where it has completely taken over who they are as a being. But on this spectrum, you see those behaviors. And they come out during conflict. They come out when provoked. They come out when they feel overwhelmed. They come out when they feel like an anxiously attached person is saying, you're responsible for my feelings. You will take responsibility. You will co-regulate with me. You will take care of me. Answer my 18 phone calls. Like that's where they start to really push back. And then the anxious person perceives it as abandonment, hurt, wounding, complete selfishness. Why don't you care? Why won't you take responsibility? I have given you everything. And they do start to look very much like a villain. Some of them are villains, but even the ethically avoidant ones start to look like a villain because they pull back. They say, whoa, I didn't sign up for this. As the novelty dopamine wears off, they say, I'm not getting anything from this. Famously, the internet now men are saying, what do women even bring to the table, right? Because they can't immerse in their parasympathetic nervous system and bond with women appropriately. So they don't know the nurturing that women are trying to offer them. Very common, unfortunately. This is when I said like online, I'm frustrated because yes, people are picking up attachment styles. Love it. But what they're getting wrong is they're demonizing and stomping over avoidant people. So an avoidant person now tries to learn, right? And they go online and say, someone said I have avoidant attachment. Let's look it up. You are a horrifying monster that should be put on an island, and the island should be nuked. And then the ashes should be, shot into space. And that's what they're reading. And they're like, wow, this is crap. I hate this. Attachment theory is garbage. So I'm trying to create a wealth of information for avoidant people in particular and the people who love them. So that's the next step.
I like what you said, because I totally agree with you about narcissists. You did an episode, or I'm not sure where I saw you on it, but you said, because that word narcissist, that label gets thrown around so much. It might be the guy is selfish or the woman is selfish. They might not be a narcissist, but we're all on the spectrum at some level. There's healthy narcissism, and then there's really unhealthy, the disorder. But you said something like 0.1% of people have the personality disorder, or 0.01
it's very,
or something.
very, 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 very vanishingly low to have narcissistic personality disorder. It is vanishingly small compared to the population that's being accused of having it.
Yeah.
If you look online right now, it's like 300% of the population has narcissistic personality disorder. Everybody's ex on the internet had narcissistic personality disorder.
Of course.
Right. It's when the other person doesn't meet your needs, it's now trendy to accuse them of narcissism because it excuses you from all of your problems that you had in the relationship. It answers questions. It's people, and I don't even think it's bad people. I don't want to say it that way. I think it's a lot of very injured people who have a lifetime of blaming themselves, finally feeling like they have an answer that excuses them and says, I'm not the garbage I thought I was. They have this. And then it soothes them, gives them closure, and then tries to resolve that trauma response that they now have to relationships so that they can try to go into the next relationship hoping for better. I think that's what's happening.
Yes.
The answer though is to learn about secure attachment. It's not to label people as narcissists and then try to go find somebody who's perfect. Look for secure attachment.
Right. Well, the other question my daughter said, make sure you ask him, in which I think I know what you're going to say, but I want everybody to hear it from you, is can avoidance or anxious or whatever attachment styles, can they be repaired?
Oh my
can
goodness,
they be healed?
Oh my goodness, this is my specialty. So I love this question because I'm launching the attachment repair program next month, where I'm guiding my own certified coaches through helping people repair their attachment. Yes, resoundingly, absolutely documented proof. Yes, you can fix your attachment and become secure. This is another reason I have to remake attachment theory, because we have secure attachment and everyone goes, wouldn't it be great if I could have been born in a family where they taught me better, but I'm doomed and now I will always be messed up. So I'm splitting secure attachment. Secure attachment that you're raised with and remade secure attachment. I have heard people floating the idea of like an earned secure. I don't like the phrase earned secure because a lot of people are anxious. People are trying to earn everything. Remade secure. You have remade your attachment to be secure. Yes, resoundingly, you can and in fact must fix your attachment issues, or your quality of life will be very low. Men who don't fix their attachment issues actually tend to die about 10 to 15 years earlier than men who have secure attachment or build secure attachment. 10 to 15 years. And not only do you die earlier, your quality of life is lower as you're alive during that period of time. So build your attachment, your quality of life goes up and you live longer.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so good. Okay. So we are out of time. I know I could probably go on talking to you for hours and hours.
So many things to talk about, isn't there? So many things.
But so where can people, tell us how people can find you? And are you said you're coming out with a new program next month about, what is that called again? And how will they find it?
Yeah. So I am Adam Lane Smith. I have to go by Lane because Adam Smith was an economist. So Adam Lane Smith. Best place to find me is adamlanesmith.com. On there, I have the attachment repair coaching program with my certified coaches. I also have the How to Love an Avoidant Man video course, which is a sneaky little trick that when avoidant men watch it, they actually learn how to share their emotional needs and what a loving woman can do for them. And then it's a sneaky little way of getting into their hearts and showing them real love. But a lot of anxious women take it and they finally understand him and they can speak effectively to him and finally break through to his heart. So I have a lot of programs on there. I'm also at Attachment Adam on YouTube and on Instagram.
Yes. Yeah. I follow Adam, and for all of you, I mean, I'm always, every time I watch him, I learn something new. So I love your information. I love your content. And again, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on. And any future questions, I'm going to text you.
You know where I am.
Because now I have a right. You were my guest. I'm
fine.
teasing. But and those of you who are watching this, make sure you follow Adam Lane Smith, and please push like, share, and subscribe if you found this information beneficial to you, and maybe there's somebody you know that it might benefit. So please share it. So thank you, Adam, again for coming on. I appreciate you.
Thank you for hosting me.